what does a typical discovery call look like? And we can keep this blended across any type of experience level of the investor. And I think one thing that we can talk about, guys, because Greg has worked with so many companies over the last 3 years, hundreds, if not thousands, probably. And as you mentioned, about 5 million Zoom calls, roughly.
Rounded up.
Yeah, are just commonalities of successful companies, and he's seen the progression of a lot of companies hiring their first VA to, and it's such a buzzword thing. Like I don't want everybody to think necessarily they need to make an additional hire to a VA or hire their first one, but they're going to strongly consider it after listening to Greg here. But a lot of it is the mindset of just being able to take a step back from your business and seeing what type of stuff, like if you put an hourly value on yourself for the 168 hours there are in a week, a third of that's hopefully sleeping just for your best cognitive and body performance. Besides that, guys, the world is kind of your playground for personal and business. So I think that's going to be a big thing. At least I would like you guys to have from this interview is kind of taking a step back and seeing what type of stuff can be outsourced. And a lot of that, as Greg will tell you, with successful companies that use Rocketstation, I think he said roughly like 80% of that type of stuff can be outsourced. So would love to hear kind of typically like what does a perfectly executed discovery call go over, and maybe some things that you outline with your team, and we can kind of progress it through that stage there.
For sure. And obviously, anybody that wants to get on a call, check out the website. There's tons of call to actions to get on a call with myself or my team. But for us, I think the biggest thing, and this doesn't matter if you're running an 8-figure a year, wholesaling investment business, or if you're just getting going and you're just kind of coming to that epiphany, like, hey, me making cold calls all day is probably not the best use of my time, and I'm sick of people yelling at me. The commonality that I see is really just people understanding that, number one, skill sets, when you put the right process in place, anything can be taught, right? There's not any real estate investor out there that came out of the womb ready to go, knowing how to wholesale, flip, wholesale deals, whatever the case may be. So it's once you can make that transition, and we call it like employee mindset, right? So many times within real estate, whether it's our team members, whether it's ourselves just getting going, it's that employee mindset, right? To where it's like, we're used to working for the machine. We know that we got to put X amount of hours in to get X amount of dollars out. And it's that constant trade-off. And like one of our favorite quotes we've got all over our office is the Rockefeller quote. It's like, would you rather make 100% returns on just your work, or would you rather make 1% return on 100 people's work, right? And that's kind of the mentality we start. So for a discovery call for us, it's really just kind of getting the parameters of like, where are you at with your business? Are you doing one transaction a month? Are you still fighting to get that first transaction under your belt? Are you paying for coaching? Or are you the guy that's doing 10, 15, 20 deals a year, and you're just trying to level up the existing team that you've got, as well as be a little bit more budget friendly? And the common thing that we see out of all of that is just there's no clarity. Number one, like, what do I need to do to get there? How can I be the owner of the company? Or even if they have that strategic vision, it's like, well, I don't have time to sit there and work with a consultant, or to just sit in front of my massive whiteboard and write out everything that Johnny and Sally and Steve do for me every day. But really, like, that's where we try to be that custom fit, that real partner with our clients, because for us, how we see it, being in the human capital business, right? Being in the employment business, all those sites like Indeed and ZipRecruiter, that's all good, right? They make tons of money. They are on my radio. They're on my Spotify all day, every day, marketing, hiring, and how it's easy and we'll automate the resumes. But for us, yes, matching the person, having that skill set, talent pool is very important. But for us, where we really feel like owners just get punched in the gut over and over and over again, and where it's like, well, screw it, I'm just going to do it myself, is because there's no process, there's no clarity, there's no organization to, number one, how are we going to find this person? But then say we do find them, how are we then going to onboard them into our culture? How are we going to make sure that they've got the support that they need? How can we make them successful and give them clarity in their role, while also making sure that our management, or ourselves as the manager, as the one man or woman show, will be able to have KPIs and numbers? And I've heard you guys talk about this a lot. Obviously, the book Traction, everyone loves it, right? It makes sense, from setting your rocks, doing your quarterly evaluations. The one thing they mentioned in there is you got to document what you're doing. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it, The part that they don't include is that documentation phase, number one, is critical. And number two, it's not easy. And for most business owners, especially in real estate, we're probably at one point or another, you've cut the ties on a W-2 that provided for your family to say, I'm going to go chase that goal. Most investors, property managers, agents, top performing brokerages that I see, they're firefighters. Give me a problem, I'll make it work. I'm going to push the envelope and make it happen to provide for my family, my team, my company, whatever. But when it comes to creating scalability and driving efficiency, that's not the attitude you can have, right? You can't just be like, when a problem comes up, I'm going to put water on it, right? We've got to plan ahead to make sure that that problem never happens. So that's really, I kind of say, a long-winded way of saying that's where our team like really tries to help. And the biggest thing that I see on discovery calls is so many people, whether it's just the VA hiring experience, where it's undependable people, not good results. Sometimes you get lucky and you find someone who sticks for 5, 6, 7 years, or if it's just burnout from the daily grind of having to put these fires out. That's the one thing that it doesn't matter if you haven't done your first deal or you're on deal number 12,000. I mean, that's the thing that I consistently see everybody coming to. It's like, hey, we know how to do this, or I know where I want to get to. I just don't know how to build that roadmap. So that's where we're trying to change the game in the VA space. But also just really provide partnership to our clients to say, hey, you've got this, you've got the knowledge, let us be the tool, be the pen, if you will, to get that out, organize it, put structure to it, put someone on that role that actually has that skill set to take the chaos of business and organize it and create clear process and definition and organizational charts so that you as the business owner can have that literally that visual to see your company, where you're trying to get to, who's being used where people need to be maximized and level up. And then typically what that leads to is there's a lot of people who either aren't cutting it and probably still shouldn't be on the payroll, but, oh, we've spent 6 months training them. We don't want to waste all that time and money, even though they're only doing 60% of their job. Like, cool, we'll stay there. We'll just keep them, because the other option is either you got to do it yourself or you got to hire again, and who wants that nightmare? And then you're able to trim that fat. Or the other thing is that you start to realize, like, if you have great people, which most of the clients that I work with do, you're probably burning them out, right? And I know COVID obviously changed the hiring, the job landscape a little bit, but I mean, up until then, it was the most booming economy ever. I mean, the average retention for somebody at a job was like just over a year. So it's like, when you talk about someone who has that knowledge, how are you helping them be successful, keeping them in their area of excellence? And all that crap, all the button clicks, all the administrative type work that burns everybody out, all of our top performers, how are you getting that off the plate? And then more importantly, how are you doing that budget friendly? So that's kind of how where we look. It's 9 times out of 10 the same issue every single time. So we just kind of act as that tour guide, if you will, to say, hey, you've got this. You've just told me all this. You have an operating business. Let us walk you through our plan to get that compartmentalized, documented out, so that you can be confident in handing it off to either your teammates or future VAs.